Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm gonna talk about the latest episode of Killjoys. Very interesting episode this week. One big thing is this was a very big Davin arc kind of episode of like Davin kind of having to deal with the whole situation because Dutch and Zeph are off doing their whole thing, which obviously I'll get to in a little bit, but it's like, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect them to be up and leave. I thought I was like, okay, we're going to chill back. I guess I should have figured with the way the episode ended, but it's like, no, they've been going for like a day or so, and it's like, holy crap, you guys just like up and left, to the point they even hid their coordinates and stuff like that. Immediately my brain goes, I guess I can understand why Dutch did it, because she knew that if she brought Johnny or Davin alone, they most likely kind of stop her. Zeph is more likely to kind of push the boundaries because that's just kind of Zeph's personality. So maybe that's what that was all about. Going to the extent of like hiding their own location like that, it's just kind of interesting to me. I do appreciate the line from Zeph being, because she's like, shouldn't we tell the boys? And Dutch is like, what? Do you miss them already? She's like, what? No. Okay, yes, maybe. It's either like, do they ever talk about me, or did they ever ask about me? I'm just like, that's so interesting that you would ask a question like that. But nevertheless, I'll get to that soon enough. But obviously, like I brought up earlier, Davin, because Davin kind of had to take charge because everything's falling apart. They try using the ships, but they lost two people. I was about to say Killjoys, but I'd assume they were Killjoys, but nevertheless, they lost two good people and they lost the two airships because they couldn't pilot them right, because there's a whole system to how they work. Basically, they act in synchronization. So basically, the way Fancy kind of explains it later on is basically that way if one person goes down, the other ships can still fly in unity. That way, I think it's like a system of like you not needing a commanding officer because, they'll lead the charge and lead the formation, but it's like if you're all on the same wavelength, you can move as one and think as one type of thing. So, nevertheless, that's happening. Then the whole fact is that Dutch is gone. The Farrens show up, but they're not really willing to stick around because, we made the promise with Dutch, not the Rack. And on top of that, things get even more crazy because you have Turin arresting the Cleansed because Fancy put his faith in Davin, and it's just like I didn't expect that. Well, I didn't know it was going to turn into such a big thing, especially because Turin apologized to being the asshole he was to, Fancy not believing in Fancy and stuff like that. It's like, I let so-and-so get in my head. It's like, well, you can't make that argument now because now you're doing it all on your own, going and arresting all the Clintons because he's like, no. How do we know for sure they're on our side or not, Which is, so shitty because it's like, for one, it's not their fault. It's not like they asked to be like this. A lot of people, it was kind of forced upon them. And now they're trying to readjust themselves back into just their regular lives. And the way Fancy puts it is like, we're trying to figure out who they are, what they are right now. Because even Fancy kind of brought up the fact is that the Killjoys, the ones that are cleansed, kind of get shit from the other Killjoys because none of them trust them or look at them and you were one of those disgusting, So, but it puts Davin in that position of he's telling them to trust them, but he has Turin going behind his back and doing this, and then Turin's like, well, we need to know whether we can trust him or not, which is a thought. But the thing is, Davin wasn't having that because it's like, you arrested them. The fact of the matter is no, I'm gonna put my faith in them, my trust in them, And Turin's like, are you stupid? Why would you do that? Oh, you're trying to go behind my back. This isn't your army. And he's like, this is barely Dutch's army because she's not even around, but he's like, it's not your army. It's so interesting. Turin has always been a dick, but this is the first time where it was like, you know what? Screw you, dude. You're out of this. And they lock him up for what he did. I was like, wow. Like I said, we all know he was kind of an asshole because even Davin was saying that earlier when Fancy brought it. It was like, come on, Turin's an asshole, but he wouldn't do nothing like it. He would. So that's just so kind of interesting that he was just kind of removed like that. So I'm curious to see what they do with him, with the rest of the story. I doubt he's going to stay locked up the entire time, but it's I'm curious how this all plays out going forward. For Davin, it puts him at the forefront of everything. He has to lead this army and everything, which in retrospect, considering everything, it kind of makes sense that he would be the one that everyone's kind of backing up behind because Davin is kind of the key to this whole situation. He is the one that helps unlock the ships. Being what he is kind of the ultimate weapon against the Holland. So, but kind of getting towards Fancy too, it's kind of interesting because even Fancy started having doubts about himself because even at the end he's like, because of what that other Holland said, like 2 episodes ago, it started messing with his head a little bit because he's like, well, how do I know who to trust? Like, how can I really trust her? Like, are we, maybe we're not really cleansed. Maybe it's like a temporary thing that eventually it will come back, a worried like that because they don't know where they fall. They're not Holland. They're not humans anymore. It's like, where do we fall in the middle of all of this? So, but you have Davin being like, I'm putting my trust in you, and like, put your trust in me, and I'm gonna put my trust in you. So, I don't know. It's kind of interesting because Davin kind of used the example too. It's like he knows what that's kind of like because it's like, hey, I had a chip on my brain that controlled me and made me kill my entire squad. So he knows what it's like to not be you. Like he knows that exact feeling and having to come back from it. So if anyone can relate Davin again, especially like everything that's happened to him from attacking in his own squad to attacking Dutch and Johnny to being whatever he is to the Holland because of what's inside of his head and everything. Being anti-Holland, I guess I could phrase it like that. But really quickly, I'll kind of put that on hold just to kind of talk about Dutch's side of things and kind of bring it all together. But on Dutch's side of things, we see her kind of diving into her memories with Zeph's help. And we learn a lot of interesting things. We learn that Klein is a Crushy, except like the whole like situation because it's so far back and because he kind of abandoned Crush because he immediately was like, yeah, Crush is going to turn into a bad place. Like, and given enough time, like, its land's not really going to be worth much. The water is going to rise and kind of envelop everything is kind of what he was saying. And so he wanted to leave as soon as possible to kind of get a new start somewhere else and then come back afterwards. So, but because of that whole situation, it led to his family being erased from like the records. So now only the 9 exists. So that was just kind of an interesting development. But seeing her bounce all around these different memories, different particular ones. Like for one, we learned that, Anila is kind of like very different, and it's something I guess I should have realized, and maybe I kind of brought up. I brought it up so that it was so interesting that she actually cares about Delsea. We've seen that like we saw that wasn't the last episode, yeah, how much she cares about Delsea, and now it's like, oh, it makes more sense now because Anila feels like she's imperfect. That basically is like, oh, we got to find a way to make the green male better with humans because it's just not gelling well. And it's like, what are you talking about? It's not. I'm feeling too much. And it's like, yeah, she's very emotional when you think about it. She isn't pragmatic because that's the whole point that the green kind of knows who you are. But it's like when you actually think about it, it's like the way she has outbursts, she gets angry and she cares about people. It's like, dude, like you're not detached. But then, I guess at the same time, you could argue the same thing applies to Klein. So I think even maybe something went wrong with both of theirs. I don't know. It seems like Klein is cold-hearted at times, but it does also seem like maybe, I don't know. But you could definitely tell something's wrong with her. So that's what she wanted to try and figure out to kind of make herself, perfect, But you also have her constantly referencing like, oh, you can't, like why he took the memories from Anila because she's like, oh, you did something bad. We can't let anyone know what you did. That's why he took the memories. And it seems like I'm interpreting this, and I could be 100% wrong, because we never really get to see like anything about who Anila's mom is. So I'm assuming the madam that they're kind of like the lady they're referencing is Anila's mom. Because when Anila is referencing the green, she also refers to it as a she. So it's like maybe there's some connection there. Maybe her mom is like fully melded with the green in some shape or form. Maybe that's all there is to her. Maybe like she ended up being submerged in a pool of green and like her body broke down in it, or her consciousness broke down in it, whatever the case may be. Or maybe, because we do know that Anila isn't a high-ranking officer. Last episode I was like, no, did you really think the hierarchy stopped with her? It's like, no, there's more to it. So maybe her mom's at the top, But it seems like Anila is the only one that can do what she can do. We also got to look at Anila kind of being on her own and what that means for the episode. Because the entire time you're like, oh man, Anila must be her mom. But it's like, no, there's no way you can be her mom. She could be your mom because Holland can't have children. Didn't catch that before. Didn't know that was a thing. Have they mentioned that before? I don't think that ever came up before, that Holland can't have children. But I guess... it's like, oh, well, I guess that makes sense. That's why they need human bodies. That's what the whole point of humans are. There was so many twists and turns, like, oh, what could this be about? Because she's talking about, oh, yeah, this has, you see, it's that Dutch has Klein's DNA. It's like, who's the father? It's like, you're the father. I was like, what does that mean? I was like, wait a minute. Did she make a clone copy of herself? What does this mean? But the cool thing is, we finally got that answer on what it means. Dutch is Anila. somehow, some way, Anila pulled a young version of herself from her memories, and voila, you have Dutch. It's like, holy shit. Because even Klein's like, no, how'd you do that? It's like, no, we can implant memories from the green. We can't take them out. She's like, but I can. It's like, holy shit. Which also begs the question, like, would Davin be able to do something like that? Or is it just because she's a whole and she has a special ability? Like, once again, it's like, her and Davin, like, there's this big spectrum, and Davin and Anila are on opposite ends. Once again, that's why Anila's so fascinated with her. And maybe this whole situation has something to do with what she found out last episode, whatever it may be, whatever it is that's so important about Davin to, like, the Green's future or Holland Engine, whatever the case may be. It's like something she discovered last episode. Like, I threw out my thoughts. I didn't really understand what it meant. I don't think they've really phrased it as like what it means. It's a huge development, because we still don't know what obviously it seems like they're running that on Delsea, but we don't know what that means. But nevertheless, like, maybe I kind of attribute it as like a way of like supercharging all Holland or something like that, but I don't know. It's just kind of interesting, it's like, but holy crap, that's what this was about. It's like, so, because you can even say, I was even about to say, did we do some like time travel stuff? It's like, I don't know if you would even technically count that as time travel. Technically it is, because she pulled herself back, which in itself is kind of a paradox and everything, which then kind of begs the question, is she even really her anymore? I don't, like, what I mean is, like, is that like really her from back then, or is it just the goop took on the form of a life of its own? And I think that's something why Dutch isn't talking to Davin about it. Davin's like, talk to me. She's like, I can't talk to you about this. She's like, I don't need this whole leadership thing. You go ahead and take it. I just can't deal with it right now, which is like interesting, because it's like, she says it herself, it's like, and everyone else says it, you started this war, you're kind of backing away, because even Turin kind of got her on, like, brought it up. It's like, she's so focused on getting Anila that even the other stuff she's leaving us high and dry, which in a way she did. I mean, that's why Davin kind of got pissed at. It's like, you are the commander of this whole ship, this whole situation, and you just up and leave. We don't, like, if something happened to you, like, what would we do, But I am interpreting that as simply like Dutch is having a hard time swallowing this, because it means that she's not even her own person. She is a young Anila. It's not like they're two separate people. You are literally the same person. That the fact of the matter is, it might even make her feel like I'm not real, because the fact of the matter is, it's not like I have my own identity as Dutch and everything, but even then it's like I am Anila, like I'm not my own person and everything. Arguably, once again, it's like you could argue it's like maybe I'm just a construct of the Holland, like the Green made me or something. It took those memories and implanted it, and it's like whatever the case may be, I'm not my own person. I don't like Dutch, who I am, everything about me is someone else, So it's not even just that they look alike, that they are the same person. Obviously, it's almost like a nature versus nurture type of situation of like, and it's kind of why Anila did it in the first place, because she was like, because her dad had told, like, Klein had brought up a story of like, the good wolf and the bad wolf within people. No one can live with a constant war inside of them. So she considers herself kind of the bad wolf. So she wanted to kind of make a good wolf, so like he wouldn't be so disappointed or in her, kind of would love her again, and kind of bring back that happiness, I guess, kind of just like steal the wolves inside of him, because Klein has to do everything Klein has ever done has been to protect Anila. And so now it's like, now you understand why, not only just because she looks like so much like Anila, why he protected Dutch so much and cared for her so much. It's because she was Anila. She was the Anila he didn't have. But the fact is, he raised her to kind of be hard. I mean, granted, that is a different thing too. It's like, this isn't the Klein that raised the original Anila. This is the Klein that became a Holland. So obviously his raising tactics were very different. But he didn't kill her. It's like, because, once again, she would find out and it'd be a whole issue of, doing what she did. Because she broke the rules by doing something that no one thought was possible. So if that got found out, who knows what would fall on Anila's head. So that's why Klein took her memories and everything. So, overall, that I was not expecting. I was like, okay, it's like, okay, what's it going to be? Like, I don't think anyone would have been able to guess that it's like, oh yeah, Dutch is Anila from the past, but she's not time traveled. Which, like I said, I don't know if you really consider that time travel. Once again, wouldn't it, like, if you were to kind of count that as time travel? And I was going to bring this up earlier, but I think I kind of got sidetracked in my own tangents and stuff like that. But wouldn't that count as a paradox? Like, but once again, maybe because it's not technically time travel, it doesn't count. That is just crazy to me. I'm very interested to see where that goes from there. Kind of a little side thing this episode I really appreciate it is it's also seemed like Zeph and Johnny are definitely getting closer, because it's like, Zeph is like, yeah, okay, Dutch is telling me to hide all this stuff. Yeah, I'm the one behind it. I kind of outsmart you, Johnny. Ha ha ha. But here's some stuff to let you know you can try and track us down if the time needs be. I'm gonna try and help Dutch out the best I can, but just in case something bad happens, come and rescue us. Be the heroes you need to be. I even love the moment of like when Dutch kind of went inside of her memories and ended up cutting Zeph, and Zeph is bleeding a little bit. She's like, I can't understand. It's like, whoa, am I being racist? I think I get racist when I bleed. Even later on, be like, no, leave scars. Scars are cool. And it's like, okay, whatever. But Johnny also recognizing her a little bit more to the team, because it's like, hey, you kind of did what the Jacobys would do, in a sense. That you'd go along with whatever Dutch wants to do, because she has that free will to and everything. It's her choice and everything. But at the same time, being pulled back enough to pull her back if need be. So it's like, yeah, you're running the Jacoby style of things. So I thought that was kind of interesting. We also got a little peek at Dutch and Johnny when she was reliving her memories. It was almost in like a fugue state. She was kind of literally living them out. And we saw when she first met Johnny. I think it was back in season 1 she referenced the fact is, like, I think she had it pointed at her head, and then, like, eventually it was, I think she denied the fact is that she had it pointed at Johnny's junk, which now we see is the truth. I think she did. I might be confusing this with something else, but there's a similar conversation of something I was thinking about when I was watching this from, like, a movie. I'm sitting here, I recognize what the movie was. I think it was The Losers. It's a whole bit in the movie. Nevertheless, that's its own thing, but nevertheless, I go on too many tangents. I apologize for that. My mind is always going at a million miles an hour and stuff when I'm recording these. But, I mean, like I said, like, this was a very, very good episode, and some interesting development all around. And I'm curious to see what goes on in the next episode. Like, what does this mean? What will Dutch do? Like, will Davin kind of try and snap her out of this? I mean, will Johnny do? Like, I mean, we still have to get back to Anila and the whole Delsea situation. Once again, who is this her? Is this her that they were mentioning? Is that Anila's mom? And it's like, is that why Anila secretly hates Dutch so much? Because Dutch reminds her of who she could be? Oh, you're the version of me my daddy loves. Or does she not reckon, like, well, the fact of it is her memory's going, I'm an idiot. It's because it's like, my dad spent so much time with you, cared about you. It's like Anila doesn't recognize or remember who she is. I'm completely forgetting that aspect, so... But I think it's on some level. I mean, maybe subconsciously she also hates her for that too, because it's like subconsciously she remembers like, oh, you're the good version of me that daddy loves and everything. Maybe that plays a role in that too. Maybe not. Maybe I'm overthinking things. I have a tendency to do that. It's definitely going to be very interesting going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.